That's good. You on YouTube?
This is the air outside your house. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold.
You on YouTube? Yeah, YouTube, what's up?
This is the air outside your house.
What's going on?
What's going on? We got broadcast this to the world.
Let's get it going.
Yeah,
Another classic.
They've been waiting for it.
I'll bring my boy on. Bring my guy on. Let's see who's in here. There you go.
There you go. Found
There
it.
you go. Let's get it going. It's lit.
Just remember that Mother's Day isn't just about your mom.
Don't forget about Mother's Day, though.
Forget about Mother's Day.
That's fact. Yeah, that's big time.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big one. Everybody's been asking for the return.
The long overdue return.
Long-awaited return. Oh, what's up, brother?
I said, y'all can hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, you good, bro. Hold on. Let me
Turn
turn you up a little bit. Yep. We hear you good.
What's going on, brother?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How you guys doing?
We great,
Holding
man.
up, man. How's the family? How's everything going?
I know, right? Right. I guess it's one.
That's it. That's the walk by.
Okay, how's everything with you guys?
Good. Yeah, you just used a little choppy right there, but yeah. So this is your first time ever using Zoom?
yeah. My daughters want to be using Zoom, so.
All right.
Yeah, the homeschool. They doing it for school right now?
For school, right?
Yeah, for school, yeah.
About to teach daddy. Like, Daddy, this is how you do it.
Yeah, she's sick. She's like, wait, I'll teach you, daddy.
Yeah, man. Nah, it's thank you for joining us. We're gonna let people get in there. Can you pull up the YouTube?
Yeah, I got you. Yep.
But anybody that isn't familiar, Lord of the Slums had a legendary episode, episode 20 for the Earn Your Leisure podcast, and it's still one of the top episodes that we've had. It's been out for probably like a year now, almost.
Yeah, June will be a year, man. It'll be a year in June.
Almost a year.
And he's strong, man.
Yeah. So my man Fernando, I'll give the rundown. Legendary real estate investor out of Paterson, New Jersey. And you might have seen him on tour with DJ Envy and Flippin' MJ, but he's actually ill because he owns how many units? Like 400?
I don't want discounting. What is it?
That's that. I'm not at 400. Just shy of the 200. It's 400 is just what I have, like in in process.
Okay.
And I'm working on getting variances and stuff, and yeah, it'll be up there.
Okay.
God, like by the end of the year, hopefully I'll have all my approvals and I'll be up there.
Yeah. How's the vision board looking?
It's looking healthy, man. It's like basically I got all the pieces I needed. So now it's just a matter of being patient and getting these architects and engineers and attorneys let them do what they do.
All right. Well, hey, 200 units. Who's counting? Who's counting? So yeah, over 200 units in Jersey, and also development. He does. He started developing. That's the last time the last thing we spoke about on the podcast was the development of like 20 different land lots. So I thought you would be the perfect person to speak to because, especially for our real estate community, which is growing rapidly, being that we in the crisis that we in as far as Corona and everything that's going on right now. A lot of landlords, a lot of real estate investors are kind of, especially new ones, they don't really know like what direction to go in, how the market's going to shape out, how to get money from their tenants. Like, a lot of people is panicking when it comes to real estate right now. So we wanted to bring you on as a seasoned investor and somebody that's actually obviously going through it like everybody else is going through it. And just get information on some real estate on the market, but then also get your how you're actually coping and how you different things that you're doing on your end. And then question and answer. That's the dope part about this on YouTube is that we get to have questions people can raise their hand and ask questions and stuff like that. So we get to like take questions. So
and Zoom, y'all know how this works, right? Y'all raise your hands, we come to y'all, unmute yourself and ask your questions. And YouTube, we check in sporadically, like we're watching it on YouTube, so we take questions from there too. So it's gonna be a good one now.
Yeah. If you're EYL University, once again, if you have a question, please raise your hand, and then we'll get to that. And then all of the YouTube communities, we'll type in, and then we'll try to get to your questions as well. So before we start, we gotta let everybody know there's 3 hours left. 3 hours left.
Yeah.
We got a sale. So we got EYL University, and we got a real estate group, which is actually dope, a private real estate group on Facebook. So it's a whole platform that we got. So we discounted 60% off with a code EYL149, and it's $149 for the whole entire year. So they get like a bunch of webinars, they get access to our real estate group, workshops, all kinds of stuff. So, but that price is going up because it's like
May 1st.
Yeah, everybody was like, "Are you crazy?"
I really don't. I don't think that people now don't realize like, the tools and like the resources that are out there, and it's how many books over the years like I purchased and how many hours I dedicated going on Google, going on YouTube before I got into this, just trying to do research. And back then it's kind of like, I'm talking about like when I started was 2006 or so. So the internet is not what it is now. Like, and all these gurus that you hear now, they weren't around back then in a sense, as far as being out there like that. So, it's once in a while you might hear of like Robert Kawasaki and somebody having like a seminar and you go, you check it out real quick. But it's like, just guys, other people online just sharing information. It's like, you guys, your platform, it's a lot of stuff that, people should take advantage of.
No, I appreciate that. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in the YouTube thing. And yeah, if anybody is interested, that it goes up at midnight, the price will go up, but it's still $149 for the entire year. It's into the code EYL149. So Fernando, let's get into it. So you made a killing off of hard money loans, right? And let's just talk about that briefly. If anybody didn't watch the episode, because people might not be familiar.
I'll say for this, man, like before we actually spoke to you about that, I had no idea. Did you have any idea about that?
I heard about hard money loan before, but I wasn't too familiar with it, like how he broke it down.
And since that point, there's been so many people saying that episode and the explanation that you gave about hard money loans have completely changed their lives. I just want to let you know that. So can you introduce the audience to what hard money is?
Yeah. Can you talk about the hard money loan process for a little bit?
So hard money, it's basically private investors. It's you do have 2 different types, and especially now during this market, you realize how important it is to know between the 2. So you have your traditional hard money lenders, which for the most part, a lot of them originated as real estate investors. And, they get to the point, I guess, they figure like they had enough of like the hustle of, dealing with the investments and all that, build up a good capital and decided like, partner up maybe with other investors and people that they know that had good capital, and they'll create like their own private fund of like $5, $10, $20 million, private money. So now, because it is private money, it's basically, they make the rules. So they don't follow the same rules as banks follow, because it's their money. They could do basically whatever they want with their money. And, they go out and they'll loan on properties. The way they structure it, because they were originally investors, is like basically they go based on the asset. So it's, they don't, obviously who you are and what you do is important, but to them, the most important piece of everything is the property you're buying, how much is worth as is, how much you need to put into it, and how much would it be worth afterwards. And, they create, different lenders have their own formulas. Some go 65%. Some go up to even like 75, 80%. So it depends which one you go with. Then you have your other ones, which are ones who came off later on after they started seeing these guys making so much money, which are your more like, they kind of operate a little bit more like a bank. Might kind of sort of come from like the same background as like an investor, but rather than getting private money, they get more like institutional money, and they're backed like by some type of fund. They have to follow like some strict guidelines, like as if they were a bank. And right now, what was going on right now with banks are tightening it up, they're also kind of in that situation where they got to tighten up like the lending. So those other, though, like the original hard money lenders, they still out there, they're still lending. It's, this, the way they see this is, is just a little speed bump. They're not really like too worried as the other lenders are. I mean, the other lenders, they wish they could loan. They just don't have that fund that they need to replace and replenish like the funds that they have.
Yeah. So the age-old question, and I get this a lot, is where do I find a hard money lender? Like everybody asks me, they're like, yo, I heard the episode. How can I find a hard money lender? I'm like, did you really listen to the episode? Because he said it. But where do we find them? And what's the first, like, how do we approach them? If I'm a first-time investor, what's the approach? What are the things I need to know and ask for these hard money lenders?
No, I mean, I think like the if you don't know anybody that can refer you to somebody, just go on Google, just start Googling and try to find somebody who's very local. So it's ideally you want a hard money lender that you can actually drive to their office and you can actually meet them. A lot of them too, when you start doing business with them, they might actually send one of their own underwriters or representatives to go and look at your property. So, you got a direct contact. So, you don't want to, let's say, be in Jersey and then use a hard money lender that's in Texas. You could, but I don't recommend it. I think you're better off finding somebody that's very local. So, wherever you're from, if you're in Chicago, try to find somebody in Chicago. Like if you're in Florida, find somebody in Florida and so forth. So, I think that's like, I think that'd be like kind of like the best way, to find somebody.
So these hard money lenders, the thing with hard money lenders, which is really interesting to me, is that they don't really have the same, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. They don't have the same requirements that a regular bank has. Whereas like they're not checking for your credit score. They're not checking to see your income and stuff like that. It's more so of like the value of the property and the cash flow of the property. That's why a lot of people like the hard money, even though it's a higher interest rate, right? It's a higher interest rate, but it's easier to get financing a lot of times than traditional, right?
No, yeah, like first time I used a hard money lender, it's before I was using a hard money lender, I actually was using a community, but like not a community bank, a local bank. They weren't community, they were like a regular kind of like bank, but very small, just in Jersey. And the VP at the bank, he was sort of like he did like I did a few deals with him, and he was sort of like a hard money lender sense, like he would loan me on a property, even if it didn't need a rehab work. I just had to come up with the rehab money myself. But I'm talking about like an interest only loan at a 6% interest. So my mortgage payment was like $300, $400, $500. But what happened was I got into a property. They were going to loan me on it. In between the process of me trying to do my closing, talking about like a week or two after I was under contract, mind you, when I put in my offer, is basically my deposit was non-refundable. So if I couldn't get my loan, I lose my deposit. And I think, it was just, it was a $5,000 deposit, but, to me, that was a lot of money, basically, that was a lot. So right when that happened, basically the state came in and they put a tax lien on me, and it was by mistake, but to reverse it was going to take a few months. So now this bank, they couldn't loan, it's based on credit. So even if he wanted to give me the loan, even if he thought that it was a dope deal, he just couldn't give me the loan because they have their rules and regulations that they got to follow. And that's just one rule, and that he couldn't overwrite that. So that's when I was like, that's kind of like when I had like no choice but to go with a hard money lender. So going from a bank charging me 6% interest to then a hard money lender that's 14% interest was a big jump. But I was able to explain the hard money was, show them paperwork that I did not owe nobody, I did not owe the state any taxes. They wanted to kind of like see that. My credit score when that happened was like, because of that, it dropped to a 585. So that's the reason why the bank couldn't give me the loan. Mm-hmm. The hard money lender gave me the loan. All they were interested in was the property, how much money, how much work it needed. And because this was my first time doing a hard money loan, they wanted to see bank accounts, which it's crazy. A lot of the loans that I get with the hard money lenders, they don't ask for bank accounts.
So these days, because you talking on the phone, hard money's kind of slowed up for most people, right? Like for the majority of people, it's almost impossible to get a hard money loan these days.
It's not that it's impossible. It's just that it's a lucrative business. A lot of non-hard money lenders started labeling themselves as hard money lenders. It's kind of like, let's say I could tomorrow wake up and decide I'm gonna start a real estate fund and call myself a hard money lender, have a couple of $1 million. Just like just like normal banks will give out loans, and then the fund comes in and buys off all your loans. You get replenished and just keep it moving. Mm-hmm. Those people, those institutions that are buying these loans, they're not buying them right now. So those hard money lenders pretty much got to shut down for the time being. So the only ones that are left are like those true hard money lenders, and obviously because of the situation, even though they could loan, if you're a newbie and you're someone who doesn't have any experience and they haven't done business with you, then it might be kind of hard to get a loan from them.
So
You kind of, yeah, for the most part, a lot of people are sort of like stuck.
So you said that they actually look for your bank account. How much do you have to have in reserves, or is that contingent on how much the property costs at the time?
No, that was just that time. They weren't really too interested on how much I had. They just wanted to see like how much money was being deposited. What was my transactions, and that was, I think that from what I can remember, that's like the only time I have to show like my bank accounts to like a hard money lender. Most of these guys, remember, all they're interested in is the property, and they don't care if you went under your mattress and you got $20,000-$30,000 cash and you decided to go to deposit in the bank and get a certified check and bring it to them. They're fine with that because they make the rules basically. So
Nah, Derek Falcon loves you. Derek Falcon loves you.
Absolutely loves you.
He's your favorite. He's your biggest fan. And we did a live podcast at Capital One Arena. That's where the Wizards play. And he was saying that he had never heard about hard money before until he watched your episode. He's like, he called you personally and you gave him the information about hard money. And he was like, he went down there and they gave him like a lot of credit. So he got like a loan for like
crazy loan,
$750,000. And he was like, he showed him some money that he was like, all you needed was 50,000. I got that. So, and then I asked him, I'm like, how did that feel? He's like, I felt like I was selling heroin. He was like,
he reminded me of that feeling. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. Same conversation. He pulled me to the side. He's like, yo, I don't think you get it. I don't think you get it what you guys are doing. Like, I would never know, Fernando, if it wasn't for y'all. Like, this is crazy.
No, I'm telling you, man. This whole setup you guys have is dope, yeah. And it's not just real estate related, man. It's just investment related, and that's something we need in the inner cities.
And we got MG walking in the building. MG, what's up?
Matt Garland, what's up, brother?
What's going on, y'all?
Everything good, man.
How you?
Yeah, I feel like I need to be on camera for Fernando, man. I haven't seen Fernando in a while. He got the caveman beard and everything right now.
It's the Corona swag, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's going on with you,
Only time I could get away with this.
Everything good?
Yeah, man. Everything's good, man. As good as we could be doing, during these times. But thank God, health is the most important thing, and everybody out here is healthy, man. How's everything over there?
Everything's good, man. I'm alive and blessed and trying to stay corona free.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, Fernando, right? Yeah. So you're a legend, couple hundred units under your belt. How are you, and I just jumped on, so I'm not sure if you guys even got this far yet, but how are you managing with your tenants right now during, COVID-19?
Well, let's say right now it's the end of the month. Typically during this time, I usually have about from 97 to 100% of my rent. That's like on a typical month on average. Right now I have 85, which is a huge hit. But I'll be honest, it's a lot better than a lot of people out there. Yeah. So it's manageable. It's not something I can manage long term, but for like the next month, two or three, I think I can cope with it. You know what I mean?
So 85% paid, we're at the end of the month right now. Yeah. So pre-COVID-19, you were running about 100% paid.
Yeah, you always get these few here and there that, somebody eventually falls into some type of hardship. So, they'll go past like the 30 days. But yeah, man, it's like a 12, 13% drop.
12, 13% back. So overall, that's not really bad when you think about the situation that we're in. We have, all these people losing their jobs and everything like that. That's a high rate of collecting all your rent for this month.
Yeah, I was able to communicate with a lot of tenants. The first couple of weeks, it was really bad. Because for the most part, by the 5th of the month, I usually have 75 to 80% of the rent. So it's like the 5th of the month came and it was looking bad. The 10th of the month came and I was a little worried, so, obviously still reaching out to tenants, but there was just a lot of people are unemployed right now, and they had to, do the process of filing for unemployment. Once the 15th came around, that's like when I started getting like a huge lump sum. The 15th kind of felt more like the 5th. And that's when a lot of people just started coming through with their money. Fortunate because it's like, I'm not like on a high end market. I'm not like, let's say, or even, let's not even call it a high end. I'm not in the New York market where like, any apartment could be $25,000, $30,000. So, those people go unemployed, they probably still have a hard time to pay the rent. my tenants, I mean, some of them, we were super gassed and speaking with them because they get that extra 600. So they're actually making more now than they were making before. So for them, it's kind of like a good opportunity to stack up and, you know, and try to catch up with other things. But yeah, man, I think I was very fortunate this month, and most people came through.
And what are you projecting for May? Are you projecting pretty much the same 85% collected?
You know what? I think for May it'll be a little better because I think from that 85, there's still people who partially paid and others who showed even their proof that they're gonna, you know, they're still waiting on the unemployment. So I think that once May comes around, some of those they'll be able to catch back up. So you know, I'm being optimistic, but I think I'll probably be north of 90%.
So with those folks that
you know, we'll still be pretty solid.
So with those folks who didn't pay, you know, that 15% of the people who didn't pay, did you have to work out some sort of payment arrangement? You know, because there's a lot of talk, you know, tenants obviously are seeing on the news every single day, the government or politicians are saying, don't pay your rent, you don't have to pay your rent, or deferments or mortgages and things of that nature. You know, have your tenants came to you with those issues asking you, hey, are you getting deferment so they don't have to pay? Or like people really trying to get over, or like are people really like impacted by COVID-19?
No, at the beginning of the month, which is why maybe it took to the 15th, because, you know, I had to do a lot of explanation. And, you know, I had tenants straight up telling me, nah, send me proof that you paid your mortgage, because they said if you not, the owners don't have to pay the mortgage, so I don't have to pay my rent.
Wait,
so,
hold on. They hold on. They actually said proof.
Wait, they put the script on you?
Yeah. I had an extra few. I told me that, yo.
I heard you don't got to pay your mortgage. That means I don't got to pay my rent.
Yeah. So, you know, I had to, you know, because, you know, people, you know, listen to the news, and, you know, I've seen the news and I've seen, you know, even I think that, you know, some of the politicians, you know, saying things like that, like, oh, you know, homeowners, but, you know, explain to them too, because, you know, for some cases it is kind of true, right? Because if you have a Fannie Mae or like one of those government-backed loans, you can call up the bank and they can, and not that they're going to forgive the payment, but they can kind of work something out. And then they're kind of like expecting you to kind of like deliver that then to the tenants and kind of like pass it forward. But I don't have government-backed loans, you know, I have private loans. And at first, when this whole thing happened, I was a little worried and concerned, especially when you turn on the news and you're hearing people, they're not going to, you know, governors saying, don't, you know, if you don't pay your rent, you know, if you don't have to, if you don't have it, this and that. Yeah. So I called up a couple of the lenders and I'm still waiting for a call back.
So is there an eviction freeze in New Jersey right now?
Yeah. I think, yeah, like, you know, while this whole Corona thing is going on, like, you know, there's an eviction freeze. And kind of sucks too, man, because I had people that I filed in February, and they're part of that percentage there. People that I filed in February that we were supposed to be in court, I think like at the March 23rd around there, that got canceled because of the coronavirus. So now they're kind of just riding it out. And, you know, for my market,
so it goes back. So if you had somebody in January, they could potentially fall into this window too, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, like luckily nobody from January, I was able to take care of those issues. Yeah. But the ones from February, they're still lingering.
Michael McDonald, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it. Somebody asked the question, what is that? The super chat is just, you know, when people just randomly want to just give some support. We appreciate it. So yeah, he has a question. He said, do you rent government programs as well? I guess Section 8. You don't do Section 8, right?
It's not that I don't do Section 8. Section 8 doesn't do me. Like, you know, what happened with Section 8? I used to rock with Section 8. But I had this issue once with this tenant. She kind of like broke a few doors, and then Section 8 was getting at me because they did the yearly inspections. I had no idea these doors were broken. Obviously, the tenant was going to call me and say, hey, listen, I broke some doors, because they know I'm going to tell them, yo, you got to fix it. So the inspector came through and they make the list of things I had to do. And on that list, I'm seeing there's like some broken doors and things of that, those kind of things. And they actually froze my rent money. They were put in a hold. They said, once you do those repairs, we'll give you that rent money. And me being like very stubborn, I was like, nah, like tenant did those, they broke those doors. I need them to give me the money. It's like, nah, you have to do the repairs and you deal with the tenant later on. So I was like, oh no, that's like, you know, I got pissed off. So I was like, no, that's like BS, man. It's like, it shouldn't work that way. And I ended up taking too long to do the repairs. And it was like, it accumulated like $6,000 and they kept the money. So I got pissed off. And after that, I was like, nah. And then as I'm renovating the apartments and doing these gut renovations and the market is going up, I had one apartment and I was advertising it for $1,600. Found a tenant who was Section 8 and she gave me she was willing to get it for 1,500. Do all the paperwork, do all the inspections, and it's kind of right before she moves in, like the caseworker calls me and said, like, nah, we can't give you 15. We can only give you 14 because that's the max. So once again, I'm like, I should have told me this before we did all this paperwork all these days, because it's like, I could get 1,500. It's like, nah, that's all we're giving you. So did the math. I was like, if I try to get a new tenant, it's gonna be almost like getting 14. So I figured, you know what, when the year comes, I'll just increase the rent. And then after that, it came to realize that, because we're getting a lot of people moving in from New York into Patterson, and that created like a high demand, and we were able to get a lot more rent from cash tenants we were getting for Section 8. So Section 8 was kind of like their rules were like a little behind. So you might get 1,400 with Section 8, but you get 1,500 with a cash tenant. So I was better off just going with the cash tenant. Now I just have basically all cash tenants.
Let me ask you this, because you obviously a very successful investor with 200 units. And for people that, especially, people in our private real estate group, or anybody that might be listening that's just becoming a landlord for the first time, you have a unique strategy as far as like a rent formula. And obviously, there's no way to really calculate, if somebody's going to lose their job or if a pandemic is going to happen. But you have a whole thing of how you calculate somebody, if they're a good tenant, to rent one of your places, right? Can you talk about that, your formula that you use?
So one thing, because of my market, it will be sort of like unrealistic to expect all my tenants to have good credit. It's a shame, because if they did, they would actually make enough money that they can buy a house rather than rent one. But instead of, so credit, like when somebody rents an apartment from me, there's 4 things that I look for. Like the most important piece is that they have to gross 3 times the rent. And now, my thinking with that is because over here in Jersey, if you file for unemployment, you'll get 60% of your gross pay. So if the rent is, let's say, 1,000, they have to make 3,000. God forbid they go unemployed. That's basically they'll get like 1,800 from unemployment. So if push comes to shove, this person still will have enough to pay the rent and all their basic needs. So that's like the most important thing. That kind of sort of protects me if something bad goes happen. Because something bad is basically they lose their job. Hopefully they don't quit their job, because if they do, they don't qualify for unemployment. But that's just, nothing is 100% guaranteed. So after that, make sure that they've been working for at least like 2 years, because be surprised you get someone coming to rent an apartment from you, and they've only been working for like 2-3 months. And now they think they can go on their own. And as much as you like to give them that opportunity, is they technically don't have a stable job just yet. So if somebody doesn't have a 2-year work history, then I don't rent the apartment to them. The other fact that I look for is very important. If they've been evicted in the past 5 years, I don't rent to them, because you do get, unfortunately, people who kind of like know how to rock the system. And just by looking at somebody, you can't just look at somebody and tell. So it's like, if I see like an eviction for the past 5 years, and it's a no. And then the other is criminal history, which somebody has domestic violence or they've sold drugs, in the past 5 years or so. Then same thing, I don't rock with them, because I've been in situations where rent the apartments to someone, and right now I think I have a tenant who's using one of my apartments as a spot. So yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like,
to travel too far.
You want to minimize these things. It's all about minimizing. So you want to minimize. So those are like the factors that I use. I wish credit was one of the factors, but it'll be unrealistic to incorporate credit as a factor in my apartments because of where they're located. Not so much the conditions, though, basically completely rehab, but because of the area where they're located, more than likely your potential renters are not going to have good credit.
No, but I'm glad you said. I just wanted, before we go next, because the reason why I asked you that is because a lot of people just don't have any strategy at all, and they just rent to anybody that just comes and just has money. But it's like you kind of set yourself up for failure. Like I said, I mean, no system is ever 100% foolproof. But you try to have a system. Like I said, depends on your market. So like you said, credit is not the deciding factor for you because you're in a low income environment for most of your properties, and people have bad credit, unfortunately, in low income. But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily irresponsible. They could have just had bad credit for a variety of different things that have happened. So you look at other factors and kind of that puts you in a better space. And that's probably why you have only 85%, as opposed to other landlords that might be at 50% right now, or even higher, people that have paid. So
And you know what? And I've been guilty of that. When I first started, I would kind of like just someone tells me like, hey, listen, my cousin's looking for an apartment, and because they're a good tenant, I'm assuming that their cousin is a good tenant, and they're renting it over to them, and then no background check, we didn't check any of that. Didn't have access to any of that before. Yeah, end up in a situation I have to evict someone, or even sometimes like there were certain situations where I knew this person was gonna end up messing up on their rent payment eventually, but I was so tight with money that I kind of looked at it like, you know what, let me just borrow these $3,000 this person has right now and figure it out 3-4 months down the road when I have to evict. And then 3-4-6 months later, I'm in court thinking to myself like, damn, I should have never taken that money.
That's your line though, man. You live by that. Cash poor, asset rich. Yeah, we never gonna forget that line.
Nah, yeah, man. So sometimes it's like, let me get this, pay this mortgage payment, and keep my credit good, and then get something out from here to then.
So you posted the other day that there was an increase in people searching for homes. I think you had like 400 inquiries, but only 9 people actually qualify. So they didn't meet those requirements that you spoke about, correct?
Yeah, because it's like it's like I get the leads from online. It's the software that I use sends a blast to like Trulia, Zillow, Apartments.com, and like a whole bunch. There's like 80 on the list. A lot of them I don't even know like people who jumped on those, but we still get the leads. So people hit us up for the apartments, and then when they reach out to us, those 4 factors that I say that I look for, basically send them an email just letting them know, look, I'm gonna check your credit. I'm gonna do a background check. Don't care too much about your credit, but we do care about eviction, and we do care about if you've had like a criminal background and like recent stuff. You have to make 3 times the rent, and you have to have been working for at least 4 years. So it kind of just gives them a heads up, like, we're gonna check for this stuff, especially people who've been evicted before. Once they see that, they kind of already know, like, oh man, they're gonna check for that. Yeah. So that right there filters out a whole bunch of people. And then once they respond back and they answer the questions correctly the way we want it, then we'll respond back to them and we'll send them like the phone number of the person who's in charge of renting the apartments. Then they'll show them the apartment, and you still get a lot of people who even spend the $50 for the application, and you'll see they've been evicted. You'll see that, or they show us their pay stubs, and they'll show us the pay stubs like from like 2 years ago. They're like, now we need today's pay stubs, and then they don't have it. So but yeah, like out of this month, over 400 people, I ended up renting like five apartments, which goes to show you too. Right now, this whole Corona, people are renting apartments.
Yeah, it surprised me. It surprised me when I saw that number. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people that are looking for homes right now. But
yeah, it goes. Yeah, like, I was surprised too, because like I was gonna actually hold off and just rent the apartments for like June. I'm like, you know what? Let me just put them out there. If they rent, they rent. If they don't, then we're gonna be vacant anyway.
Yeah,
shout out to Edwin Hernandez.
On the super.
That's my
we come with Lakim.
You know
him? yeah. That's my brother.
Is he really?
That's
yeah.
Yo, what up, kid? Lakim, the floor is yours, man. Go ahead. You got a question?
Yo, what's up? Appreciate everything that y'all doing. My question for Fernando is, and by the way, Queen's in the house, but
Queens get the money.
Yeah. Fernando, what's your strategies for rental retention and making sure that your properties don't have high turnover?
I think that when you filter out a tenant, like you make sure that they have these things, because most people don't want to move into a place and then move out a few months later. I also make sure, like, whoever rents the apartment, like, yo, listen, make sure they know the area. Especially, I have properties that are in semi-decent areas, and I have some that, it's you hear more than gunshots. Like, your neighbors, like the neighbor next door, his house might got shot up. So sometimes you get people who are not too familiar with the area, and they move in, and then a few months later they realize like they're in the hood, and they want to move out. So I always make sure to tell the guys, like, don't try to be slick. Let them, if they, especially these people coming from New York, let them know what time it is. Like, this is the type of area that they're moving into, so that when they move in, if they already know what kind of place they're moving into. And to keep them, man, I think the key is when somebody calls for repair, man, we try to take care of the repairs like the next day, basically. If it's rare, unless it's like a roof leak, those are the ones that usually take a little while, because you got to wait for it to stop raining, then you got to send the guy out to fix, then you got to wait for it to rain again to make sure that it was fixed right before you go and fix the inside of it. Heat problems, take care of them right away. So it's like, if you treat your tenants good, then I think that, they'll treat you good. And as far as like paying your rent on time and staying in the apartment, that's, I think I haven't really sat down and analyzed how long people last in their apartments, but I would probably say 2 to 3 years is kind of like sort of like an average that most people stay in the apartments.
And then, so if you have tenants who you prefer, and you're like, yo, these are quality tenants, do you still raise their rent year after year, or is that kind of something that you do to make certain that you lessen your turnover?
Nah, you know what? I could, you know, in Patterson, you're allowed to raise the rent every year 5%. I usually do 2. I even have some tenants who've been with me for 3 years, and you know, and I don't even go raising the rent because, you know, you got people who, so they do live paycheck to paycheck, and I could go and raise an extra $50, but then those $50 cost me that tenant because they might just say to themselves like, oh, you know what? If he's gonna raise me 50, I could just drop an extra 150 and move 10 blocks over somewhere, which is much more quiet, and it'll be more peaceful. So it's kind of like you gotta sort of have, you know, for me, I'd rather keep the tenant, and then it's, especially most of my apartments is like they're gut renovations. So when I move someone in, they're pretty much paying top dollar for that apartment. So there's no need for me, if I try to raise the rent the following year, I might be overcharging them for rent because I'm already getting top dollar for it. So 2 to 3 years is probably like the time frame that I use before I raise the rent.
Well, I appreciate it.
Like, that's also part of like treating your tenants good and just try to keep them. You know, you don't want to like, or at least I don't want to like, you know, nickel and dime them and sort of like take advantage in a way.
No, I appreciate it. All the best, man, and thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate you. Like,
Thank you. Let me just
Hold on.
Let me make a couple of announcements, man. Hold on. Shout out to Ian Dunlap, the star of our newest show that we're producing. Is his show, Market Mondays and on the check-in. Shout out to young CEO Clark for the super chat. We appreciate it. Somebody said I was charged $280. So here's the deal. When you go to EYL University, you go to the annual membership and you hit code. You hit the code and then you enter code EYL149. If you don't want to pay $290, don't go through with it if it says $290. But email us at info@earnyourleisure if you made a mistake. We'll refund you the difference. But yeah, anybody that wants to sign up, once again, the code is running up at midnight tonight.
It's a fact.
60% off. When you go to EYL University, enter code EYL149 on the annual membership. It says code, and you get the discount. It doesn't just happen automatically. You have to enter the code.
You got to put the code in, yo.
Appreciate you, though.
Yeah, Justin Hayden, what's going on? We're coming to you right now. Unmute yourself. You've been unmuted.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Everything's good, man. How you?
Good. How you, bro?
Good. All right, Fernando, I got a couple questions for you. What software do you use for screening? Like I've heard of cozyco.com. Is there particular ones that you use?
Well, I mean, I use a management software called AppFolio.
Okay.
And through that, I manage my website, I manage my accounting on the properties, and they also manage the marketing of the properties. So it's basically when I have a vacancy, I just basically click on one button, and automatically it sends a blast to like 80 plus websites for me to advertise my apartments.
Oh, okay.
And then as far as to screen the tenants, they also have incorporated in it. They have a system where I can screen tenants. If it's the screen gives me the credit report with credit score. It gives me a background check. So any criminal history, I'll see it there. It gives me and it also gives me the eviction check. So if they ever been filed for eviction, I will see it.
Okay. Can you spell the name of that?
App, like an app on the phone, APP.
Okay.
And then folio, think of a portfolio. So AppFolio. They have a website. AppFolio.
AppFolio.
Okay.
You know, they're sort of on the expensive side if you just have a couple of properties.
Okay.
There's other places, other management softwares you can use if to manage properties that are much cheaper than that.
Okay.
If you have a lot of units, it actually becomes cheaper than the less expensive ones. Because
Okay.
they have a unit price tag.
Okay. For hard money lending, besides having the 10 to 20% in cash, I know you said that most of the time the lenders only care about the property, but what other paperwork do you have to submit? Are you showing them ARVs and all that kind of stuff? Like what else are you submitting to the hard money lender?
Typically, a homeowner, they will order an appraisal. And when they get the appraisal, it'll tell them how much the property is worth as is and how much it's going to be worth once the repairs are done. And before you order the appraisal, they would want you to tell them those numbers. And, you know, and usually your numbers pretty much, if you know your market, they'll match the appraisal numbers. Sometimes they don't. And that's when having a good relationship kicks in.
Okay.
So, and I even have, you know, I've been dealing with my hard money lenders. I've been using the same ones for like the past 5 years. So I'm at the point that the appraisal, actually I order my own appraisal. Like the appraisal basically works for me in a sense. Or to have another one, you know, she doesn't even order an appraisal. I just know what is the property, and that's all she needs to know.
Oh, dang. Okay. And then last one, how long generally are your leases?
How much or what?
How long do you have your leases? Like, are they year leases?
No, my lease is just for 1 year. After a year, just roll of month to month. It's the way I see it. You know, when somebody commits for 1 year, I don't need to lock them in for anything, you know, for longer than that. And you know, it's kind of like if they move out, it's because they want to upgrade and they might move to a bigger apartment, or if they want to downgrade, they could move to one of my smaller apartments. You know, that happens. People move from one apartment to another. Or, you know, if they move out, they move out. But, you know, I feel like I treat my tenants, you know, if I treat them good. So it's kind of, they're not going to move from a 3-bedroom, $1,200 apartment to move into another 3-bedroom, $1,200 apartment unless they like moving. So,
Fernando, have you ever had to change a lease agreement during the time frame, like because somebody was facing financial hardship? Is that something that you're open to or that you've done in the past?
Yeah. Like even now, like I actually had one tenant who, because of the coronavirus, she just felt like she couldn't afford the apartment and she didn't want to deal with no payment plan. She didn't want to, she just wanted to move out. And so usually if somebody wants to break a lease, I let them break the lease, but they have to move out a week before the lease is up. And during the time, they have to let me show the apartment. So what usually happens during the time I'm able to show the apartment, they move a week before. That gives me a week to make any small repairs that the apartment may need. Because, you know, somebody moves in, they move out. You got to get the next person that comes in, you got to give them a fresh painted apartment, clean. So, you know, it gives me like a week to take care of that.
So in the age of Corona, how are you showing apartments right now? What does that look like?
Well, for the most part, the apartments are vacant. So it's just, you know, just show them the apartment. I mean, the guys, they wear masks and, you know, still keep the social distancing. Not out there shaking hands and nothing like that.
So
people, you know, people still moving. You know, you gotta keep in mind, like people are still working. I forgot to check, but it's like, how much is what is the unemployment rate right now? Isn't it like
30 million?
No, not the rate, like the number.
Oh, the rate.
It's like 11%, 12%.
Yeah.
Like 12%, right?
12%, yeah, 12%.
So I guess in theory, you can say that only 12% of the people are not working, right? Because there's a lot of people who are staying home, but they're still getting paid. They're still working from home. So that's kind of like, I think too, like with my stuff is like 85%. I feel like it's kind of like right there at the percentage of unemployment. So, you know, when somebody else says that, you know, their building is 50%, only 50% of the people paid, is either they have bad luck or just some people just taking advantage.
Somebody asked a question, we'll answer a question from YouTube. They said, do you manage your properties yourself, or do you advise manage out of state properties? I don't know what that means.
So do you manage your properties yourself, and do you
what's
your advice on managing properties out of state?
Yeah.
I manage my properties myself in the sense like I own my own property management company. So I got workers, people that manage them for me, but they work directly for me. So I am my own property manager in the sense. It's like, as far as managing out of state, man, it's everything I have is in Patterson. You know, which is something people ask me all the time. Oh, why you don't own like stuff in Newark? But when I first started, I had to pretty much do a lot of things myself. So it was more practical for me to stay in Patterson, and I could, you know, when somebody hits me up to like a boiler broke down, I will go personally and check out the boiler, see if it broke down. So I could call the plumber and come and check it out. If I had a property, let's say in Jersey City, that means I had to drive off almost like an hour to go and look at that, where if I was already living in Patterson, it was just like 5 minutes. And if I'm gonna get the same deal somewhere else as far as like the return on my investment, then why am I gonna leave my circle?
Yeah,
and as out of state, so it's like if I don't go out of city, I'm definitely not gonna go out of state.
There are people in Zoom that are asking questions. Listen, just raise your hand so you can just act it out so the whole community can hear.
Let me get a quick question in. Fernando, let me ask you this, right? So for the first time home buyer or the investor that's looking to buy a multifamily, you know, as we go through COVID-19 and states are starting to reopen probably within the next 30 to 45 days, like what advice would you give them as far as buying real estate right now?
I mean, I'll say go with your gut. If your gut tells you hold off, just hold off. And if your gut tells you, you know, this is the time to buy, then go ahead and buy. I think it's natural for people to have, you know, second thoughts and be scared of investing. If you're, you know, but the way I see it, if you're scared of investing, I don't think you're gonna lose that. So I think that is just really pushing through that. But you know, right now, because of the time it is right now, I would say that if you're having second thoughts, then just, you know, hold off. But you know, and it's kind of like sort of what you're seeing right now. You got people who still jump like me. Like, you know, it's not gonna stop me from developing or from renting apartments or like keep going with my strategy. And if your plan was to get an investment property this year, then, you know, definitely go and get that investment property this year.
We got a question.
Then just hold on.
Miss Owens, we coming to you, EYL regular.
Hey guys. Thanks for taking the time. Am I on mute? Can y'all hear me?
Now you're perfect.
All right, cool. So I think someone kind of alluded to my initial question and kind of answered it as far as the property management situation. So is there any reason why you didn't hire a property management company outside of like financial reasons?
Well, when I started as a real estate agent, and it was always my intention to be an investor. But I, you know, got my license so I could learn the business, and it just so happened that I had no choice but to become an actual agent myself. So as I was an agent, I started transitioning. So I went from a real estate agent to a property. When I bought my first property, I realized like, all right, I'm gonna be an investor. I need to know how to manage properties. I already have one property. I'm managing one house. Why not make money manage other people's houses? So I started managing other people's houses. And then in 2015, when I felt like I had enough of my own properties, I started letting go of those clients and replacing them with my own properties until eventually all my properties that I manage, they're my properties. But you know, I recommend if you're going to be an official investor and you're looking at yourself, it's not as somebody who's just going to own a couple of properties, but someone who's going to take investing serious and this is going to be the only thing you're going to do, then I recommend you get the property and manage it yourself just so you can kind of know the ins and outs, and then hire someone to manage it for you, or even build your own little team, depending on how far you want to take it.
And thank you. And my follow-up question is, so you're in Jersey, so is everything, do you have buildings like quads or something like that? Or do you have like apartment buildings, or is it all like single family?
No, like the buildings, that's something that I'm working on right now. Like that's gonna be like the next phase of investment that I'm gonna be doing. But right now, most of my properties, they're from, you know, 2 families, 4 families, 6, 8, 10 units. Like
okay.
10, yeah.
And last thing, so I'm imagining like Patterson is a bit cheaper than Newark, North New Jersey. Well, Patterson is kind of like North Jersey. And my thought is like, did you go in because it was lower priced, kind of easier entryway? Or is it just you started to have the access to the, because essentially my whole goal is to go into I live in South Florida, but Jacksonville is a cheaper market. And I'm like, if I hop into that market, is there any strategy that you found going into Patterson versus Newark or New York, anywhere that may be a bit more expensive?
So before I started investing in properties, I worked for a foreclosure company, and my job was to go and really foreclose, knock on people's door, let them know that their house got officially foreclosed, not in process, and they had to move out. I had to give them money so they can move out. And I used to do that in throughout North Jersey. So I was familiar with, I was working in Newark, Jersey City, pretty much like all the cities in Jersey and North Jersey. I knew those markets in and out. My job was to go look at the property, let the asset manager know how much the house was worth as is, how much it needed in repair, and how much it was going to be worth once it was done. So this is before I became an investor, just as a real estate agent. So once I was ready, pretty much I was sort of like an expert in Newark, in Patterson and Elizabeth and Jersey City. So these were all places that had really good opportunities. And kind of like when the time came that I needed to buy something, I stuck with Patterson because I was born and raised there. So, but not only was I born and raised there, but there was opportunities there. So my recommendation is go wherever the opportunities are, but try to stay as close as possible to wherever your home base is, because you want to be as close as possible to your investments. And like, hey, listen, if it means picking up your bags and moving somewhere else,
Yeah.
then go ahead and then do that. Because it's like, I'm a first generation immigrant. Like my parents, you know, they immigrated to the US, and it's kind of like, that's what they did. There was no opportunities in Dominican Republic. So they just packed their bags and they came to the US looking for opportunities. So I'm familiar with like the whole concept, even though I didn't have to do that. But, you know, hey, if that's what it's going to take, then I said, go ahead and do that.
Listen, I live in Miami, and we've been, it's expensive here. It's very expensive.
Yeah, so like, if you're up for the challenge, move somewhere
For sure.
Opportunities. Or you could try to, like, from Miami. I'm just not, I wouldn't know how to guide you, because that's not what I did. So I say find somebody who's an investor. They manage houses, properties outside of their jurisdiction, and see how they did it.
Ms. Owens, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And before we go to the next question, once again, 3 hours left for our 60% sale for EYL University. It is EYL 149 is the code. That will end at midnight. And that gives you access to our private real estate group, workshops, all kinds of stuff, book club, movie club. We got a variety of different things that's really, really going on over there. David, we are coming to you.
Yeah, David, unmute yourself.
David,
hey, how y'all doing?
Everything good.
How are you?
Pito, call up.
I'm good. All right. So my question would be, so I get like you gotta go in and look at your property to understand like what it is as is and what it could be. But do you have like a system for like how you determine repairs, what things are gonna cost rehab wise to get you in the right spot where you need to be to like turn a profit?
Nah, man, like I'm very old school, and because I've seen a lot of other people, they have systems. I mean, I have a system, but it's like my system is basically, I started with one property with very light repairs, and I moved up slowly into more properties with like complete gut renovation. So it's like, I think the system that I recommend for people to do is just basically start off with something that you can sort of do yourself, or at least something that's easy for you to manage. And that you can sort of price out yourself, because if you never bought a house and you try to jump into a gut renovation, you're going to be lost, because you're not going to know what it needs. You're not going to know how to price it out. But if you go to a property that is in is in decent condition, that is like borderline, somebody could just move in there, and you notice, oh, you know what? If I paint the walls and I throw some laminate floorings, change the cabinets in the kitchen, and just kind of like maybe gut the bathroom and do it, you can sort of price that out yourself in a way, or you can just get, if partner up with like a contractor that you trust and know, and they could go in and they can tell you, hey, listen, I'll do this for X amount of dollars. And once you already know how much it's going to cost you to do those renovations you want, and if you don't know the numbers, you could get that from the contractor. You take it from there. Then you know how much they're asking for the house, and then you know how much you can offer for it if you already know how much you're going to spend on it.
And then also, David, thank you for that question. Also, something that I don't know if I mentioned, but Fernando is actually, well, he was before COVID-19. He's on tour with DJ Envy and Caesar. You and Caesar are best friends, right? Hello?
Yeah, you broke up right there. Can
you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead now.
Yeah, I said you and Caesar are best friends, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing that I know Caesar and Envy, they do on all their properties, and I think you're doing the same thing, is that you do the same exact thing for every house, right? It's like
yeah. Even like the new constructions that I'm doing.
Yeah.
They're same sidings, same windows, same laminate floorings, same tile, same kitchen, everything the same. It's like you go to one, you see them all.
Yeah.
So I'm not in the business, I'm not like, I think that doing stuff differently, that kind of works in the more like in the high-end kind of market, because you don't want the same, people don't like that cookie cutter stuff, but it's like the most practical thing to do is just do the same exact thing everywhere you go.
Yeah, can you tell them, how, I mean, even from a cost standpoint, how that helps you as a buyer, not having to buy different things, you just buy something in bulk?
Yeah, not even so much in bulk, because in theory, that means you already did your homework and you already found what's the perfect and least expensive laminate flooring. So that's it. This is your laminate flooring. This is what you're going with all the time. The paint color, you don't have to tell your guys what paint they're gonna buy. They already know what paint they're gonna get. The toilet, the fixtures, the cabinets, everything. You already did your homework and you already called up 50 places and you got your best price. So once you lock in your best price on everything that you're gonna do, then you just keep rocking with the same thing. Because if you change something, if you decide you're gonna go with a different floor, now you got to do your homework on that floor. You got to see where you're gonna get that for the best price. So why go through that every time?
So Fernando, how did you learn how to be a developer? Because doing new construction is different from doing a rehab project. So what did you do to learn how to develop, multiple properties at the scale you're doing right now? Like, what was your homework?
That I was crazy. That was my homework. I mean, before I decided I wanted to build houses, I put in my mind that I wanted to build buildings, right? Like, 20 units, 30 unit buildings. So I started analyzing. I already was doing the paperwork for my first building. I started really thinking to myself, like, man, like, you've never built anything from the ground up. How are you gonna build a building? Like, that's insane. So I started analyzing and I figured, you know what, I got these lots. Let me look into building the lot. And then it was scary, but then when I analyzed that, you know what, when you do a gut renovation, you pretty much have a shell of a house because you're gutting the electric, you're gutting the plumbing, you got to do all that brand new. You might have to do a roof, you might have to replace windows. So there isn't the only two parts that I had no idea at the time was basically how do I do a foundation and how do I do framing. So I figured, you know what, let me just give it a try. And
so what's the most important lesson you learned so far in your journey of being a developer for those out there that aspire to build new construction? Like, what's the most important thing that you can tell them right now that they need to do to be, a great developer?
I mean, I say quality. So it's you want to keep the quality up. It's a more you're risking more because there's a lot more money involved. It's a much larger project, but try to maintain the system so that you can move from one project to another a lot quicker. So I don't use one contract. I use for every house I deal with 20, 30 different people. So it's because I deal with so many people, I'm able to handle a larger volume because the guy that does the floors, that's all he does. So it's almost like he's always available to do floors. The guy who does the foundation, that's all he does. He just does foundation. So it's like whenever I hit him up from foundation, he can handle a few foundations at the same time. Now I had just gotten a contractor who's going to do everything. More than likely he's gonna tap out, because it's like he'll have my project plus other people's project, and he's probably not gonna handle a whole bunch of ground up construction projects at the same time. So you got to learn how to manage people, and not just manage them, but you also got to learn how to manage the numbers with them, so that even if you're dealing with 30 different people, you got to try your best to get the price as if you were just dealing with one.
We got a question.
Again, let's take one question from YouTube.
Yeah.
Somebody said, how do you collect rent? Is it electronically or cash, or do you have a rent collection, or it's different for everybody?
Yeah, no, because some people kind of miss it. When I say cash tenants, they think that people actually pay me cash. I used to do that, but for a while I felt like it just wasn't, we have too many units. It's just not really too practical. And, I guess, you go to the bank with 50, 100, case. They start,
100 bands on the wake up.
I'm not going in there exactly with a 3-piece suit. I'm going with my hat turned backwards. Is like they see me, they kind of think I'm like some dope boy or something. They always ask me.
They saw the trap lord shirt.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Going with the trap shirt and asking these questions like, what is it you do? And it's like, but I told you last week when I gave you the dude,
I'm in here every month at this time. Stop it.
Yeah, then they you get tired of counting the money. It takes a couple of hours to count the money. It just wasn't practical. So I started slowly phasing tenants to with the technology. So half of my tenants, more than half, I'll say about 60%, they pay me cash, but they don't pay me directly. I have a system where they either go to a 7-Eleven or CVS pharmacy and they pay them the money cash. And when they pay, they give them these special cards and they scan it. The CVS or 7-Eleven, they'll scan it. They'll take their money, and as soon as they pay, automatically in my management system, it shows Tenny at such address paid X amount of money, and they get a receipt too that shows their name, my company's name, and all that, and it's all legit. And then the other tenants, they pay online using their checking account, credit cards too. I take credit cards. Very few people pay with credit cards because there's a $37 fee. But if it's the 5th and they're faced with a $50 fee on the 6th or a $37 fee, some pay with the credit cards, and save themselves some $13.
Wait, I'm trying to go back to the 7-Eleven. So they walk into a 7-Eleven, pay their rent. Is the 7-Eleven take a percentage at all?
They charge them $4.
Okay.
It's not bad when you think about $4.
That's not bad at all.
That's not
You
bad.
pay like $1 for a certified check, and they got to mail it. They probably pay the envelope and the stamp another $1.
You really the trap. You really the trap lord. You really the trap lord. That was a slight stunt too. You said, I hate to have to go to the bank because it used to take a couple hours to count the money.
Don't let that go over your head.
Let that go over your head. He said it takes a couple of hours to count the money. That's crazy.
They got the machines and all.
You got to double count and make sure the machines is correct.
Back twice. Joel, we're coming to you, bro. Unmute yourself.
Buy up a little scale and just start weighing my money.
What's up, guys?
What's going on, bro?
Not much, man. First off, shout out Dominicans. I love seeing Dominicans being catalysts.
No.
Dímelo. My question would be, given COVID, the pandemic, has it changed your investment strategy as it pertains to long-term developmental projects? Because we don't know exactly where the market might be 12 to 18 months from now.
No, it hasn't. As of now, it hasn't changed my strategy. I'm still pushing to get all my approvals. And it's my projects are very long game, because I probably won't have my approvals on all of my properties to the end of the year, and that was with or without the corona. That's just what was going to happen. And to develop over 400 units from the ground up might take a couple of years anyway. So I was planning like a 3-4 year strategy off the gut. With the corona, it's hard to say because it's like this never happened before. So it's as of the funds, the money's still flowing, so it's like I got to keep pushing and just keep doing what I had planned to do. But I'm not changing my strategy. Like there's nothing that's happened to me or my portfolio as of right now that would make me want to change my strategy. I'm not a flipper. So maybe if I was a flipper, then I kind of would see maybe I won't get as much as I used to get for the properties. But then again, a lot of flaky people are gonna leave the market. So it's like you might not be able to sell the houses for as much, but you pick them up for cheaper. So if you're a good investor, if the market is going up, you'll make money. And if the market is going down, you'll figure out a way to make money. I think the people who are tapping out are the people who, label themselves investors, but they truly weren't investors. So it's like if the market's dipping, they should still be able to make a profit. They just got to adjust. And if they can't adjust, that means they were just more of an opportunist than really investors.
Got it. And I just want to make one hopeful suggestion. So I hope that there's a day where EYL has a real estate syndication pool, and maybe Fernando could lead the way on that.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
I like how that sounds. Appreciate that, Joel.
Appreciate it.
No doubt, man.
Shout out to all the international on the check-in. London, shout out to London, shout out to Canada. EYL's global, Fernando.
Yeah, no, I see that, man. I'm telling you, and it's still in the early stages, man. It's like every time I check in, it's just like more. I'm not just an alumni, man. I'm a listener too.
I appreciate it.
Ernest, what's going on? You have unmuted yourself. You got a question? What's going on?
Yo. Can you guys hear me?
You're perfect, man.
What's up?
All right, great. First off, I want to thank you guys, both of you guys. I've been following you guys for a long time, and I was finally able to pull the trigger and join the EYL University. I want to go ahead and thank you guys for the value you've been adding.
Thank you. Appreciate it, brother.
Fernando as well, man. I mean, from the first episode that you guys were, you were on. I want to thank you for all the value you've been adding as well. My question is pertaining to short-term rentals. How do you feel about that? Or is that part of your strategy, maybe to bridge vacancies?
No, I'm a long-term renter. I don't spread myself out like that. I know, I guess it's like people have that mentality, like, oh, you gotta kind of do a little bit here and a little bit there. it's my way of, real estate is what I do. Rentals is what I focus on from the beginning. I've been focusing on rentals, all long-term rentals. I'm not familiar with like the short-term rentals. I'm sure there's money in that. I'm just not interested in that, in that money, just because it's like, I'm good with what I'm doing right now. Like with my system of what I do. I don't think I have the need for short-term rentals. I think that short-term rentals, the need for that might just be more like with the luxury high-end apartments. Maybe they might take a hit, like they can't find like the renters, so they got to at least get it rented and at least get the mortgage payment, and just to like weather out the storm. You gotta keep in mind, man. Like I'm in the inner city, in the hood, and it's basically, from where I'm at, I'm only like, it's the thing I always be saying, like, I buy houses where I hear the gunshots, but my houses don't get hit with bullets. So the next step down will be buying a house that gets hit with bullets. Then the step down from that would just basically be like a box somewhere. So, you can't really, it's basically, as far as like downgrading, if somebody needs to downgrade their lifestyle, is like people are going to come to me. There's going to be more people coming towards my properties than people are leaving from my properties. But if I was in a high-end luxury market, then it's kind of like, I could foresee like taking a hit, because, if people can't get their jobs back and they were making good money, and they might have to then later on compromise for a job that doesn't pay them as much, that means they got to downgrade what they're living at. But it's where I'm at in the city, there's not too much to really downgrade.
Gotcha. All right, thank you for that.
Thank you, Ernie. Appreciate it. Shout out to Wall Street Trapper.
Trap, what up?
On the check-in. Do you know Trapper? Lord, you two got the top two names on Instagram. Y'all one of the top episodes too. Wall Street Trapper and Lord of the Slums. You got to meet each other if you've never met each other before.
Got to come through to one of your next meet and greets. Hopefully,
we gonna have
it might be the way with mask on.
They've been looking for you, man. Every time we go to a city, they looking for you, bro. I'm telling you, they like, where's he coming with? I said, listen, New York. When we do something in New York, he's gonna be there.
Yo, for Fernando, I'm gonna hold you up, bro. Everywhere I go, everyone's like, yo, Lord of the Slums is the GOAT. And I'm like, yo, y'all need to follow Lord of the Slums. You know what I'm saying? Legend.
Yo, Matt, I'm glad you on. So, Peter, I thought he was going to call in, but he had this question, and maybe you and Fernando could, both of you could answer it. Somebody asked, does a HML or a PML count as a bank loan? We can only get 10 mortgage loans in our name, so would that count against it?
So what a HML is basically a home mortgage loan, and a PML is a private mortgage loan. For those of you who don't understand the acronym. So with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you can get up to 10 finance properties if you qualify. Obviously, it's more income-based, it's not asset-based. But with hard money and asset-based lending, like Fernando has explained in this call, there's no cap on how many loans you can get financed. It's more about your capital. Do you have the money to put down to pay for your down payment, closing costs, et cetera, et cetera. So it's two different formulas. One is DTI, the other is asset-based, cash flow-based.
Okay, gotcha. Peter, I hope that helps.
Fernando, I had a question because, like you said, most of your properties are in the hood, and I know Jersey got different eviction laws than New York. Where New York it's like almost impossible to evict somebody, but Jersey is like real easy. What's your eviction process, and how has the eviction process changed because of COVID-19? Because that's something that a lot of landlords, even in the YouTube comments, people have asked about that. And of course, nobody wants to evict anybody. You don't want to, but it's also a business, and everybody has a family to feed as well. So, going into real estate, that's something that you actually have to prepare yourself for. And even from a psychological standpoint, does that ever mess with you psychologically to actually have to evict somebody? Like, is that tolling? Like, I always like, how does that feel?
I mean, just put it this way, I'm no longer involved with the eviction. Like, I talk to the tenants. Is like, I mean, I could walk next by one of my tenants. I don't even know they're my tenant. The eviction, business is business. But at the end of the day, you're human, and you know that especially once you go to court and you realize that the person you're evicting, they truly do have a hardship. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, you have a business to run, and, you can't like basically give them free rent. Just, don't, unfortunately, I don't have that luxury right now. Yeah, man, I seen people, grown men cry in court. I seen women cry in court with their kids. Situations where some of them, some are very real, like, there's real people, going through like real hardships. And yeah, your heart, goes out to them. And I don't call it eviction. I call it insurance policy. When I go to court, if a person has a hardship, I try to work with them. Even if it means taking that balance and just kind of like split it up, for like a few months. And it also depends, how's my financial situation at the time. So it's like, if money is tight, then I might have to just proceed with the lockout. Or if I feel that their hardship is not temporary, like, it's just, that's just going to be their situation for a long time, then it's kind of like, then I would have to just proceed with like the lockout. It's very real, man. It's just like sort of like the ugly side of the business.
And I wanted to just ask you that, because I personally never heard anybody talk about that. We always talk about real estate, and it's like everything is all good, everybody's making money, but there's other sides to the game, and it's like, I think it's important for people to understand every single part of it, and that's a part of it. And it's like, we all people, and it's like you could be conflicted as far as like, you got a business to run, you got a family to feed, you can't afford just to let somebody live for free, but you also don't want to put somebody out on the street. So it's no right or wrong. I just wanted to get your take on it, because I personally never heard anybody talk about that. And everybody wants to get in real estate, but it's like, understand that these is all things that go into play.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it does happen. And if it's, like I said, if it's a true hardship, I work with them. And if it's not a true hardship, then it's like they got to call. I don't call them. I'm very strict with the eviction. I don't wait 30 days. It's basically on my lease, it says that on the 10th of the month, I'll file for eviction. I usually stretch it to like the 15th of the month, just to give them a couple extra days. And I file the eviction, and some of them get very upset because for the most part, people are just paying their rent late, super late. So let's say I file the eviction on the 15th. A week later, they'll get a notice saying that they have a court date coming up, and by that time they've already paid their rent. They start sending messages. It's just like, I don't speak, we don't speak with tenants over the phone. Everything is through text message, so that I could go back and look at all the conversations with tenants. And you see them like very upset. Oh, I just paid my rent. How dare you file for eviction and this and that. I'm not even 30 days late. And they don't realize that because credit is not a factor, my guarantee is not their credit. My guarantee is the court system. So if they're paying late and it looks, I don't file for eviction. I file what I call an insurance policy. I pay $51 for this insurance policy, which tells me that if this person, for whatever reason, let it be a legit hardship or just like, they just don't want to pay their rent for whatever reason, I know that the following month, I'll be able to lock them out. And at most, what I end up losing is probably like half of a month's rent, because they have a month and a half security. So that covers me for a month and a half. That covers the process of an eviction at a worst case scenario. And then bam, when I evict them, I just, I'll rent the apartment. Hopefully they haven't really trashed it, and I won't take a big hit. Also, that also puts me in a situation, puts them in a situation where they have to realize like, all right, do I pay this person this money that I owe them, or do I move out? Because I filed so early, it's cheaper to just pay me than to deal with the process of moving all your stuff out, then finding somewhere else to move. So you got to try to file it as quick as possible. So like we were saying, there was people from February and it's dragging on now because of the coronavirus. It's very likely those people from February might not pay me at all, because by the time we go to court, it's going to be cheaper for them to move out than it is to pay me.
So some cities and some counties have rental assistance programs. Have you had to deal with that? And is Patterson one of those cities that does that?
Yeah, we get those all the time. We have churches with like there's a Catholic church that they've bailed out a few of my tenants, plenty of times. It's like I actually make a list every time, like, because there's different charities, and every time somebody comes through with one of those charities, I kind of write it down. So when someone goes to court and they're about to, and it looks like they don't have the money, they tell us they don't have it, and I'll give them all the phone numbers of all the places that I know that help people, so that they can go out and they can make, do their thing and try to see if they can get the help. So, it's kind of like even now with this whole thing we're saying that there's no lockouts, I felt like maybe, the government should have done something a little bit more to help those people out. And hopefully they, I think that once the time comes, and I'm hoping that a lot of these people will be able to get help from the government to pay back their back rent so that they don't have to,
But hold on for 1 second, man. Because in addition to helping the people out, I know you said that 85% of your people are paying rent, but there might be somebody who has a lot of units like yourself, and 50% of the people aren't. So what are your thoughts of having a bailout for landlords and mortgage owners?
This is the way I see it. Like, I mean, I don't know what's the right or wrong with it, but if I reach out to a lender and tell them that I'm going through a hardship because of this whole coronavirus, the way I see it, that lender will never look at me the same. Because it's like, I'm in the business of continuing doing business. It's like, like I'm, mentioned like, I have about 200 units, but in a few years, I see myself with 400 or 500 units. That's because I already have these plans of doing these bigger projects, and they're coming down the road. So now how do I go to, if today I reach out to this lender, because now I just went through this hardship that I wasn't prepared for, like, it's a pandemic and I wasn't prepared for it, but what did I do wrong where half of my tenants are not paying me rent? Did I filter my tenants correctly when I was renting my apartments, or was I just renting apartments to just anybody who had a deposit in the first month's rent? So the way I see it is like, yeah, if I reach out to the lender, tell them, I'm going through a hardship, help me out. What's gonna happen when a few months from now, or at the end of the year, when I'm ready to develop a $5 million building and I need a $5 million loan, they're not gonna be on the other side of the phone. And I need them to be on the other side of the phone to make these larger deals. So it's like, I have to do everything I can to make sure that everything, is running smoothly.
So yeah, Fernando, let me ask you real quick. You said there was a list that you had of like charities and stuff like that, and that's specifically for New Jersey, correct?
I think it's more specifically for Patterson, because most of the, Patterson is a city, and because it's a city, Patterson has its own Section 8. They have their own program that's called TRA, that's Temporary Renter Assistance, and they'll pay people's rent for like a whole year. They pay for 6 months, or even pay for a couple of years. And they have these other charity groups that are local churches and local charities and local social services that just help people out in Patterson.
So how would somebody find out in their particular city, those type of charities and stuff like that, if they have tenants who may need assistance and help? Because that's pretty dope that those organizations are around to help people pay their rent. So I think nationwide, like, how would somebody find that information out if they are a landlord with a lot of units and they have tenants who've been impacted by COVID-19?
In the court, actually, if they go to court, wherever in Jersey, it's the county court. Every county handles the evictions for whatever county the property is located in. I'm sure if you speak to one of the tellers, they'll probably have a printout. And I think, yeah, they do, because actually the one list I ended up getting was from the court. They actually gave me a list. But there's times that tenants come with other forms of charity that even the courts don't even know about, and I kind of write them down and give them out to people, just if they need.
I think that was a huge gem that you said on this live tonight, and I hope everybody really was paying attention to that, because that's something I never even thought about until you just said that. So I hope people really paid attention to that gem right there.
Well, people going through some real hardships right now, and you got to do your best to try to help them out. I mean, we actually helped out a few people file for unemployment. I had tenants who drove Uber. They had no idea that Uber drivers could get unemployment. We had tenants who self-employed, and as soon as because I'm a licensed realtor, so I ended up getting an email from like the association. That's how I found out about it. The Association of Realtors. It said, 1099 workers now qualify for unemployment. It's geared for realtors who aren't selling any houses and they need some money. Hey, apply for this unemployment while this whole thing is while we're going through this. And I took that information and I sent a blast to all the tenants and just let them know, hey, if you or anybody needs help and you're self-employed, reach out to over here for the SBA loans. For all the people who own business, I got the information, I sent it over to them. And even before this whole thing happened, I got the unemployment website and all the information, and I sent it over to people just to kind of let them know, like, you know what, if you were sent home, that means that you're not just being sent home for a week or two. It doesn't even matter. Like, apply for unemployment, because you might very likely you're going to qualify. A lot of them ended up qualifying. A lot of them hit me back like, hey, thank you. You know what? Not only did I get, and it's, and it's so helpful for someone, because these are some people who, there's like, let's say the rent is $1,200, and and they need to make 3 times the rent, right? That's 3,600. But keep in mind, there's a lot of tenants that are a couple, and that couple's making that 3,600. So when you chop it up in half, we're talking about 2 people individually making $1,800 a month gross each. So, you know, if unemployment only gives them half, you know, then, you know, they're not really getting much. So when they get that extra 600, it was like, you know, it was a lifesaver for them. So, you know, as a landlord, you got to know who your tenants are. And situations like this is like, yeah, you got to like step in and try to help them out. You know, got a lot of people who are just not informed, and, you know, you got to try your best to inform them and let them know all the resources that are out there that they can use.
Now, you know, I like that. Not only are you doing the right thing ethically, but you're also like, it's common sense. It's like the law of reciprocity. It's like you help somebody, and then they're gonna try their best to pay their rent. Because it's like if you told them like, look, you're an Uber driver, you can get unemployment. They didn't know that, and you helped them out, you hooked them up with charities and all that stuff, and they can actually get back on their feet and they start like, it's like, you know, if they're a decent person, they're gonna want to, you know, make their best effort to help you, right? As opposed to like if you was just a landlord and you just never contacted the people, and they don't, like, they're gonna be like, no, screw it. Like, I don't even know who this guy is. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think that
don't be a slum lord, be a trap lord.
Yeah.
Trap lord. Shout out to M. Bailey. Appreciate you on the super chat. Shout out to Neek111. Appreciate you on the super chat. Thank you. So we're gonna do one more question because it's been over an hour. Before we do the last question,
just like throw one more thing there. Hold on, like, you know, the first person that reached out to me, right, saying that they lost their job and they couldn't pay their rent, right? I was like, oh, really? What happened? Like, oh, I lost my job. I can't pay my rent. All right, so cool. So in my system, I went in there and then I checked their application, and I looked in the application. In the application, it looked like they worked at a supermarket. So back, I'm like, he's like, are you still working at the supermarket? Never heard back from him. But on the first, like, it was like on the 6th of the month, he paid his rent. Because, you know, he was basically, you know, it was just, you know, situations like you turn on the TV and says, you know, just talk to your landlord, you gotta pay your rent. So, hey, if you're, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask, right? So you're gonna get people who are gonna basically try to be slick and say like, oh no, you know, I can't pay. So you gotta know your tenant. So obviously I went back on my application and looked through, like, come on, man, you're working in the supermarket. If anything, you make
essential worker.
Definitely essential worker.
No, that's real, because
and you check the paperwork too.
Because people try to get over, and I heard that from somebody else. They was like, you know, they told their landlord like, yo, I don't have it, and they did have it, and it's like the landlord's in a tough spot because it's like, all right, well, just give me half, give me whatever you got, but you know, unfortunately, some people will try to take advantage. And somebody actually had that question, like, what do you do for somebody that said that they can't pay rent and they still have a job? And that's the same situation that you just had. It's like, you do have a job, so you can pay rent. And if not, then you just gotta, it's nothing you can do at that point. You just gotta go through with the eviction process.
You know, it's a process, because, you know, I do have this social, I have all their information. So push comes to shove, we'll go through, even if it's, you know, whenever we get to lock them out. Then it's the second process, and I have to take them back to court again and then sue them for all the loss of rent.
Froze up.
Damn.
Waiting for Fernando to come on.
Yeah, froze up.
Yeah. Matt, we're gonna end it.
So they're gonna have to file for bankruptcy to get rid of me.
Oh, now you're back.
Yeah, you froze
was
up
in the matrix for a second.
It's all good. So one last question, but before we go to the last question, once again, everybody, it is 9:23 Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast. We have 2 hours and 40 minutes left for our 60% off offer to EYL University, which includes 40 past webinars, our private real estate Facebook group. We have weekly webinars, a book club, movie club, all kinds of stuff, transcripts from the episodes, and that price will be going up May 1st.
Which is tomorrow.
Yeah, but if you want to take advantage of it, you enter code EYL149 at the link that was just put in the description. And so one last question. You want to take that from YouTube, or you want to ask it yourself? Or?
We'll take it from YouTube.
Earners, get it from the earners.
They didn't call up, man. They've been typing in the chat. They were having like this whole conversation.
It's a whole conversation in the Zoom chat. The Zoom chat is on fire. Shout out to the earners.
Acting like, how do you get to ask questions on the Zoom? Zoom is for the EYL University members. So that's another perk of being an EYL University member. you get access to the Zoom.
Well, this is not a question. I'll say this before that last question. You guys close it out. Fernando, you are the man, the myth, the legend. You know, me knowing you personally and seeing how you've been moving, man, it's an inspiration, dog. So keep winning, man. Keep doing what you're doing, and keep being a trap lord. You know, because there's a big difference between a slum lord and the trap lord. And I hope everybody really paid attention to how this brother is really managing his business and scaling his business. You know, it's incredible to see what a Dominican brother from Patterson can do. You know what I'm saying, with knowledge. And he looks just like us. He comes from the same places like us. He didn't have formal education. You know, he was a real estate agent and turned into a monster investor, man. So big ups to you, brother, because you out here winning, moving, and shaking, man. And I just want to salute you, man, and give you your flowers while you're here, bro.
Yo, Matt, thank you, man. Appreciate that, bro, man. And it's like, you know, you out there, you doing your thing too, man. It's like, I've got a lot of DMs, and every time somebody asks me about mortgages, man, it's like, I send them your way because, you know, it's one is like, you know, in this business, there's a lot of people who take advantage of people and don't do right by people, but, you know, you're definitely not one of those, man. And you know everything you're doing, so.
Yeah, I'm not a slum mortgage guy.
Exactly.
I'm just the mortgage guy.
Yeah, man, because you know that you know, especially I come across a lot of people and that need help, and you know you're one of those guys that I'm not gonna send them to, and you're gonna do right by them. And you know, it's unfortunate. There's a lot of people in the business that you know they'll see someone, they'll take advantage and charge them, you know, more than they should for things. So.
Facts. Nah, we're not about that. We gotta lead our culture forward, man. If it's not gonna be us, then who else is it gonna be? You know what I mean?
No, yeah, definitely, man. This whole, you know, earn your leisure, like everything, like it's I always be saying, like, this is not just about real estate. This is just about, you know, empowering, you know, people in the inner city. It's trying to like give out the information so that, you know, they can go out there and they can better themselves. Because, you know, a lot of this information, you know, just wasn't available to us as, you know, when we're coming up.
Definitely.
There's a few questions about people asking, what company are you using to check, do background checks, eviction history, criminal records? Is there a specific company or platform that you use?
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think even if you go to Zillow, like the section of apartments, there's a section there that I think people can fill out. You could tell someone go there, fill out the application, and they can, and through that, they can do like that background check where they'll give you the background check, the eviction check, and credit check. Like I said, I use my management software. It's called Appfolio, and it already comes incorporated with besides property management, it also gives me, you know, the tools that I need to market the properties and also to filter out the tenants, get background checks and all that.
Yeah. Shout out to today was everybody, EYL, a lot of people don't understand like the relationships that we have with our guests are real. And just in this live, you know, we on a live with Fernando, and then Matt jumps on, and then Master Investor jumps in the comments, and then Wall Street Trapper jumps in the comments. And then I just got a call from my brother Wallo 267. I'm gonna hit him back. Everybody know Wallo. He got the top podcast in the world right now. Him and Gilly.
Shout out to Wallo.
Yeah, so it's real, man. It's a real community that we built with Earn Your Leisure, and we're really appreciative. People like yourself, Fernando, for coming on and just providing information. And you don't really even give that many interviews, so
yeah, man, I feel very fortunate about that.
I appreciate that you chose our platform to you know to speak to the people and to educate the people. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, this is the guy who's not a public speaker, but just every time he does it, he burns down the stage, man, and burns down the platform. So thank you again, my brother.
Yeah, appreciate it, brother.
Appreciate you guys, man. Appreciate what you guys are doing, man.
All right, family. Talk to you.
Oh, because we're done. All right, no doubt, man. Everybody have
a relationships over currency, man. All day.
You know, it's kind of like time flies, man. You know.
Wait, hold on, Fernando. Tell them how to follow you, man. Tell them how to keep up with you. Tell them your Instagram. Tell them all that good stuff before we sign off.
Yeah, definitely. On my Instagram, Lord of the Slums, and yeah, you just, you know, pretty much is like the only social media that I use. You can find me there. Don't post too much, but you know, I just try whenever I post, try to post something that you know, help people out.
Yeah, and he puts fire music in his posts, man. Every time he's in the house, he got the music, the background.
The 90s, 2000, 90s rap.
He's from the era that we come from, so we love that.
I would advise anyone who goes to his page, go to his story highlights, because in his story highlights, he's breaking down the construction from beginning to end. So take a couple minutes and you'll see he's showing you the process from when he breaks ground on the properties to he's building the foundation, to framing, to siding, to roofing, to windows, to roughing, to plumbing, to electric. Like, he's very transparent about what's happening, and his soundtrack is immaculate. So make sure you check out those story highlights on Instagram. Lord of the Slums, the one and only.
You get to see his vision, man. Like you said, you can see it from a lot to pouring the cement, man. He's there for every step of it. And I mean, that's just kudos to you, man. Because like you said,
legendary.
You didn't know how to do it prior to it, but you definitely learned, man. And you the boss to do it. And he pulls up to your crib in a Toyota Tacoma because he's humble.
He's humble. But you know what? That's the thing about it, right? It's because he looks like us, man. Look, I'm hyped right now because I've been in different cities with this man. I've been in the office with him, season Envy, and I see what these guys are doing. Like, this shit is just not for the gram. These guys are real, man. These guys are not out here faking jacks. They're not out here capping. They're not out here clout chasing. These gentlemen are out here really buying up New Jersey. Like, it's insane. I've never seen anything like this from dudes who have no formal education. They're street dudes, and they really out here getting to it, man. It's remarkable, man. It's incredible. So shout out to you and Caesar and Envy. I'm just blessed to be a part of what you guys are doing, man. And everybody who's listening to this and watching this on YouTube, man, you guys should really be fortunate that someone is like at this level is sharing. Like, he's giving you guys apps that he's using. He's telling you the banks. He's telling you everything, the formula. Take this information and use this information to come out of COVID-19 quarantine to execute at a high level, man. Because you don't get this information from a lot of people, man. But this man is willing to share it, and he's sharing it all, man. So this was a dope YouTube live, man.
Appreciate you, man.
For sure. And shout out to all of our Latino supporters out there. We have a strong following, and
guys, always number one top five, right? DR, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Somebody asked us about EYL Espanol, and I think I'm talking to a great candidate who could do a class in it.
Yeah, you know, it's like my Spanish is very choppy, but you know.
That's a fact.
Shout out to Shari B for the super chat. Appreciate it. I hope I said that correctly.
Shari B.
Nah, not that Shari B.
Oh, I'm about to say I just spoke to that Shari B today.
Shout out to her.
Well, yeah.
Shout out to her.
All right.
All right, yo, guys, man. Hope you guys had a good night. Thank you for having me on board, man. You know, it's a pleasure, and you know, we still gotta have that second interview, man. You know,
that's definitely gotta happen. This is the appetizer for the main course.
Yeah, because we know that big project you're working on. We got first we got to do the interview with it, and then we got to go see it. Let's do that.
Yeah. That'll be good, like on-site, actual, you know, show people.
Because the pictures are accurate.
Part of the business. You know what I mean? So we'll definitely wait to get a formal approval on one of these days, and then we can talk about it.
Oh, definitely.
All right, brother. All right.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, bro.
EYL.
Appreciate you.
EYL University, YouTube.
The next time we see you, we'll be at different points.
We love you.
Peace.
Peace.